Right, welcome to another Mamemeister and Chums Talk Pish. It's been about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. I think it was Lukozer and Panther we got together a wee while ago. So welcome. It is a live stream, hopefully. Why can't I see the comments? Ah, there we go.
It is a
Comments
live
now.
stream.
So yeah, you know the guy at the top left, right of me. You know the hairy beast down below. And some of you may not know. Well, if you watch my 12-hour live stream, you'll know Delboy. He's a regular on the channel. So good evening, gents. How are we?
Hello.
We're here.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Good stuff. Right, listen, we've just had a wee chat before we went live. Rather than just us all talking a rabble, it'll end up cutting out people. So what we've kind of agreed to do is we've got some topics to talk about. I'll ask the question and we'll just kind of go around the table to try and kind of keep it flowing a wee bit. Please feel free, if there's any questions or anything you want to ask, just put the comments in the side. So I think we've got precisely one viewer. It says 5 actually. Good evening all, we've got Ye Olde Gamer Steve, we've got Mr. Flanagan, and we've got Mr. Swinbuckle. Welcome one and all. Just before I kind of get going, what games have you been playing, if any, this week? Start at the top, Panther. Have you been playing many games at all?
I have been playing Sam's Journey on the Commodore 64 with a look at doing a review type look at video because Andy, your friend Andy, subscribed to my channel and he sent me a free copy to see what I thought of it, which was jolly decent of him. It's not a cheap game. So
No.
I've been doing that mostly this week and today I've been putting it all together in a video for the next few weeks.
So what do you make of the game? What do you think it?
I'm not a great platformer fan, really, but it's a bloody good game. It's well put together. The presentation's 10 out of 10. I mean, would I spend 45 quid on it for a cartridge and all the box? Would I spend 20 quid on the download? Yeah, probably. There's a lot to it. It's not just like, you're not going to finish it in 5 minutes. There's something like 2,000 screens on there, so, you know, you're getting your money's worth.
I know I very kindly got a copy, or not a copy, I got an original from Andy. And when I first started the review, I was like, this is absolutely a complete rip-off. It's 20 quid for a digital download for a Commodore 64 game. You know, that's just absolute nonsense. And by the end of the 20-minute video, I was like, you know what, this is worth every penny. So I completely backtracked. It's a fantastic game. I don't think Mr. Neil would like it. It's super cute. Lots of fluffy dinosaurs.
I mean, the fact that it's a platform game is enough to put me off. I mean, it really does show the total paradox of the fact that my all-time favourite game is Impossible Mission. I cannot stand any other platform game. Now, I can't fucking work that one out. I'm sure no one else can either. Yeah.
So if you were to replace, what's the name of the guy that you play in Impossible Mission?
Oh, agent and some numbers, but don't ask me what they are.
I know it's evil. Is it Evil Atom Bender or something? Is that the?
Oh, Elvin Atom Bender is the Bond style mega villain. Yeah.
Right. So if it had a cute dinosaur in place of said agent, do you think you'd play it?
I wouldn't have even given it a second look back in '84, you know.
Yeah. What about yourself, Mr. L? What have you been playing? I know you've been playing a bit Elite, haven't you? You were doing a live stream.
Yeah, shock horror. I've been playing Elite Dangerous just for a change, and that's about it. In fact, when I say that's about it, that is it.
Was it a month? I mean, what is the kind of shortest time you could actually play Elite Dangerous for? Could you go in just for 20 minutes, or does it require a lot of involvement?
Well, how long did you play it for that time when I was there?
Well, I was probably about 2 hours and I couldn't even get out the bloody cage.
I wasn't there with you for 2 hours, I'll tell you that much.
Well, maybe it wasn't as much as that, but it was a fair bit of time. Yeah.
It just feels like it when you're stuck in there, yes. That was probably the shortest I've played it for a long time. Usually if I'm in there, I'll play it for an hour or two, and that's long enough for me to get somewhere. I've got a few things lined up that I want to do in that, so I'm sort of getting ready for that.
Good stuff. And Delboy, yourself, I'm not having much a chance to play any video games?
I did actually last week play a few. I did play Elite, and that's why I went into the little stream of Lukozer's and saw just how bad I really am and how far I've got to go if I really want to do anything in that game. But I'm a big Elite fan, if you see what I mean, from the past. But retro-wise, in my week off, I actually played Sheep in Space because I fancied a shoot 'em up on the Commodore 64. I played a really bad choice game on the Spectrum. I played Trash Man. Oh my god! I wish I hadn't.
What a rubbish that game.
My god!
I'll get my quote.
Really poor choice. I think of a Spectrum game to choose there. And also on the PC, I played a little bit of Age of Empires Definitive Edition. That was really fun, and I only sat down to sort of like play an hour, and it ended up being about 3 hours. So that actually was quite good. That passed some time away.
That happens. I've got Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and that happens with me every time I play it. I'm only meant to play it for like an hour. 5 hours later, and I finally finished the go I started. You know.
And it's funny that because I started to play that, I had some credit left on Steam. There was a sale on at the time, and I bought Cossacks, and I thought, okay, at some point I'll go and play that game. Haven't yet, but it's there and when I want to.
It's interesting you're talking about how quickly time goes. I've mentioned this before. Out of anything that I do in my life, if I sit and watch TV, an hour seems like quite a long time. Anything else that I do seems like a long time. See, the minute I decide to play a video game, or especially making a video, 3 hours have gone. As we can testify, yeah, we'll do a co-op. It'll probably be 2 hours. 4 hours 45 minutes. You know, it's just, I don't know what it is about video games. It just seems to time just seems to quadruple. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Absolutely weird thing. So my game, and I've actually played a few games this week, or yesterday I should say. In fact, I'm going to make Mr. L very jealous for about 30 seconds. I made a purchase. In fact, who was it? No, it was Ian Hunter. Mentioned in Discord, he was talking about the Commodore 128, and I thought I'll just have a look on Gumtree. See, Commodore 128, both Commodore 128 and Commodore 64 for sale in Livingston. And guess where I stay? So I made the guy an offer quite a bit less than he was looking for, and he went, no, I'm looking for more, and I went, no, that's fine. And then about 10 minutes later, he went, you drive a hard bargain. So I'm like, right, that's great. So I got the both machines, brought them home. C64 was completely dead. The light comes on, nothing else. Is that the PLA chip? Is it Panther maybe?
Could be the PLA, could be RAM, could be the VIC-2 chip.
Yeah.
I could have got it fixed, but you know.
I know. It was in quite a disgusting condition. But the C128, it came on. And then I switched it off, and maybe 3 times out of 6, it wouldn't come on, and you have to press reset and switch it on and off. And I thought, nah. But the deal breaker for me was the ultimate cartridge that I've got for the C64. It doesn't seem to be compatible. I've since done a Google, and apparently there is ways of getting it to work. But without that, not being able to use that. If it was in full working order, I wouldn't have any means of loading a game. So I thought, you know what? So I messaged the guy back. Says, look, I'm really sorry. The 128's temperamental. So to be fair, he says, I'll swing round and pick them up. So he came round, and so I was an owner for about an hour. I've got to say though, the actual hardware itself, it's reassuringly heavy. It's actually well put together. The 128.
Yeah, it's a fair size lump, yeah, that's for sure.
Bigger than I remember as well. It's almost not quite the size of a Commodore Amiga, the A500.
If memory serves, yeah, it is pretty much the size of a 500. I can't remember if it was last month. I think I told Chris about this. Jim Plays, that channel. He also...
who's in the channel at the moment? Yeah,
I don't know if he's... Oh, yeah, there he is. He also plays Elite Dangerous. He's moving house relatively soon. and he was putting a load of stuff into storage, and he offered me his 128 for nothing, not to keep, just to use, and I had to say no because I've got nowhere to put it. I got no room. So I could have had one of the things, but yeah, I had, and believe me, and he can probably tell you, it was extremely reluctantly, but yeah, I had to turn it down.
The thing about these kind of the real hardware, you need to have space. You need to really have it set up permanently to kind of make full use of it.
Yeah, I just don't have the space. So.
You know. But anyway, moving on for that. So that just kind of put me in a C64 mood. So last night, I got my chair out and I sat in front of my CRT TV with the 128, not the 128, the 64D. Is it the D, the more modern one?
64C.
C, is it? And I just sat and played that for about 2-3 hours. And then I put on my Atari ST and I was just fanning about with that, loading up games. There is something, it's hard to really say, there is something really, really nice about just loading up a game in the original, whereas loading a ROM in a PC feels quite soulless. It's nice. So it's the first kind of real games I've been playing for a wee while. So that was me.
I think the thing about the Atari ST that really put me off right at the very beginning was, and of course you can change the colours, was that green and white really just didn't do it for me. The fact it was called TOS didn't really do it for me either. But of course, you change it to blue and white and it looks a lot better. But you saw it in a store and it was green and white and you just went, that looks ugly. But it's actually a quite nice operating system.
It was. I didn't actually realise you could change the colour. I mean, I had an ST for maybe about a year possibly, and I actually used to. I spent more time messing about with that operating system, just doing stupid things. Like my mate bought one of these digitizer things, and the fact that you could record your voice was just like mind blowing, and then you could play it backwards and all this kind of shit. And yeah, I used to enjoy playing with Atari ST, and then when I got the Amiga, loaded up Workbench, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? It's like,
I wasn't aware that the operating system was called TOS. Whenever Atari ST TOS gets mentioned, I always assume it's referring to the audio.
I think it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be the operating system, but it's actually called Tramil's operating system because it just moved from Commodore to Atari, and that's the operating system. So they call it Tramil's operating system.
I didn't know that. Every day's a school day. There you go. So yeah, I enjoyed.
Sorry, I've actually got a 128 on its way to me very shortly. I've got a 128D coming. Needs a bit of TLC. The case is a bit battered. Needs a bit of body work doing on it, but my mate tells me it completely works. It's got a fully working keyboard with it, so I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's already got some holes where someone's modded it before, so that might become the new CFX machine. Who knows? I'm undecided yet, but it's got the holes ready for the switches to go in.
It's amazing actually under the hood on that because it has got quite a bit of expansion. There's a few slots. I think there's a graphic booster slot, if I remember rightly. That's quite good. And you can expand the memory as well. That gives it. You need a new kernel as well for the basic. So you'll have a lot of fun with it. Is it something that you got to recap, or have you got to put any heat sinks and stuff on it? Do you know?
No, I mean, I probably will heat sink the SID and that if it hasn't. I mean, normally my mate does all that, but if he hasn't done it, I mean, I'll do that anyway. But recaps, I won't recap something until the cap's broken, because a cap might die after 30 years. It might live for another 60. So I only recap when they're done. So I had a black screen bread bin before, and I thought, right, I'm going to recap that because that's obviously what's wrong with it. Before I started listening to people. Bought a cap kit, did a lovely soldering job on it because I can solder. Did a lovely job on it. Still had a black screen. It was the Vic that was dead. Changed the Vic chip. Bingo. It worked. Yeah. So yeah, no, I won't bother in capping unless I know there's a 40 cap on there, mate.
Yep.
How difficult is it to actually to recap things? I mean, I bought myself a starter soldering iron, but it's never actually gone beyond the box. It's still in my drawer.
Well, I used to work for a company that made Transformers, not the robots in disguise, the electric ones.
I was say, it wasn't Michael Bay, was it?
And we used to make Transformers for Hornby Hobbies and stuff like that. And I progressed for probably an extra quid to everybody else. For a while, I was the assembly supervisor, so soldering was my gig. So for me, it's fairly easy. But if you've never done it before, it's not that easy. If you've got someone there, does your mate Neil do soldering?
Yeah, Neil's done a bit of soldering for me in the past.
If you get him to show you how to solder, as long as he shows you properly where to apply the heat and where to apply the solder, soldering is actually fairly simple. It's just getting it right. And if you've got no one to show you, can make a right pig's ear of it.
Yeah, you got to be careful of the traces. But I mean, I must admit, when he started talking Transformers, I thought he was building Optimus Prime or something. I haven't got a clue what he was talking about. So
I was disappointed when he told me actually, but anyway.
I can make some shit up if you want.
Just before we move on to the Atari ST, you're talking about what you hated, well, you disliked about the Atari ST, and I think we've mentioned this before in a stream. Going from the C64, going to the Atari ST, I was like super excited, and within about half an hour of getting the Atari ST, I was, as much as I was really excited about having this new machine that could do, vector graphics and polygons, the sound was just shit compared to the C64, and I really felt like I'd gone back, and I never really quite recovered from that.
Well, audibly, you had gone back. You'd gone from a SID chip to an AY. So, yeah.
Yeah. Totally gutted.
it's more like a Mega Drive Plus. I suppose really is what I'd call that, because I mean it is the same sort of chip that you'd get around about that time, I have to say.
So do you think the reason, I mean, why I mean the C64 came out in, I stand corrected, 1982?
Yes.
Yep.
The Atari ST came out in 1986?
I think.
85, 86? So why would Atari put an inferior sound chip in it? Was it because they wanted to kind of get it out there and get it as cheap as possible? It seems to me it's a bit crazy.
I know the answer, but I wondered whether Lukozer wanted to fill in there. But basically, yes, they were up against a time restraint to get something out. They wanted something out there as fast as possible. So there was a time restraint. Budgets would have also have come into this.
Yeah,
because
certainly a cost-cutting exercise.
Because Trammell had just moved over from Commodore. He wanted to cost-cut Commodore as much as possible, and that was his big thing, was to use what's around right now that I can hodgepodge together. So that would have been part.
Yeah. So who would have owned? Would Commodore own the SID chip? Was that a trademark? The SID chip?
I think it was a Motorola chip, wasn't it?
It was an MOS.
Yeah.
And
6581.
yeah,
They bought Moss, didn't they?
Yeah. By the time the 64C and the 128 and the Amiga and that come out, most of the chips had a little Commodore chicken on it with CSG on there and that, and a lot of them were manufactured in Germany as far as I remember.
So why did Atari not approach, is it Motorola and say, can we get a SID chip, please? Or do you think...
Oh, that was never going to happen.
All right, okay, that's the question. Aye.
I don't know how accurate this is, but as far as I'm aware, the reason the Atari ST actually came into existence was because Atari wanted the license to sell the Amiga, and for whatever reason they didn't get it, and they were pretty narked about it, and so they decided they were going to release their rival to it, and that's another reason why they used the cheap parts. They were desperate to get it out on the market before Commodore got the Amiga out there.
Wasn't the Amiga originally called the Lorraine or something?
That's right, it was called the Lorraine.
It was the Amiga Lorraine, and then it became the Commodore Amiga when Commodore bought out the little company that was Amiga that was making it. Yeah,
Amiga was going to go bust, and they went to Atari, and Atari bought for 500,000, I think it was. bought the chips because they said we want a chipset. So they sort of like put them at ransom and said, look, we really want this chipset. Commodore came along basically because what could have happened was they could have bought the chipset and basically still made Amiga bust because they said, right, we bought your chipset, you're out. That's it. We don't want to know you anymore. So Commodore came along and said, actually, we want your chipset and we want your company. So they handed over a check, and this is what really knocked Atari off. They handed over the check physically themselves to Atari and said, there's your 500,000, thanks, go away. and basically that's then started the Commodore Amiga. That's how that started.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Highlanders saying their Amiga is Spanish. Yeah, Amiga is Spanish for female friend, like male friend. Like these guys are my amigos. If they was women, they'd be amigas. It's as simple as that. Female friend in Spanish.
There is quite an interesting film or TV program. I can't remember what it's called, and it's basically how the Amiga came to kind of be. And they literally say, I think they were going to show it at some kind of show, and they said they literally worked through the night. Aye, and it had all these fucking boards sticking out and sticking everywhere, and I think they hastily programmed the bouncing ball demo as well, but it was literally just like, I think they took about 10 of them to carry all these boards sellotaped together, and this was the Amiga.
Yeah, every single chip was its own board on a riser coming out from this sort of like major breadboard, so that they chiseled it all sort of together and then presented it. And I think there was a story about trying to do deluxe paint or something on a pedestal, you know, to a group of people, and they said, we hope for God that you don't do the fill-in on this because it will actually just die. Whatever you do, don't press this button. And apparently they got a famous artist,
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol, that was it, because
yep.
it was
Debbie
Harry, and he actually did press it and it worked, and they went, thank God for that.
I've just seen Wade Bob's just said in the comments, it's interesting and weird that a computer would be called that. Is it because the computer took the place of the wife or girlfriend? Well, I mean, if anything's going to stroke his head across your floppy and give you joy, say no more.
You've been waiting all night for that line, haven't you?
No, I haven't. I just thought of it.
Yeah, bro. Just before we move on to the first kind of question, I mean, the Atari ST came out. What did we reckon? 85. 85. I mean, yeah, it probably didn't. I don't know when it kind of really took off. I mean, I got one early though. I got one in 1987, and I was like the only person that I knew that had one at that point. And then the Amiga came out a couple of years later. How long do you think the Atari ST was successful? And then I think it very quickly got taken over with the Amiga. And why do you think that?
I think the Amiga came out the following year, didn't it? 86. So the ST wasn't ahead of it that much. But
9 months tops, I should think.
Yeah, I think the big problem as well was that the Amiga was at the 1,000, I think it was, and it was something like £1,500, whereas the ST was technically quite affordable, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the price.
$399, I think they were.
I think if I remember rightly, in the States it had an introductory price of $599, $599. And the Amiga without a monitor was 1,100, and with a monitor it was 1,399. But it was being aimed at a business audience, which pissed. Oh, sorry, excuse my language, but it really annoyed Jay Miner, because his machine was designed to be a flight simulator. If you believe it or not, the Amiga was designed to be a flight simulator. He wanted that to be the number one thing he wanted to get going on an Amiga.
Really?
Jay Miner.
Wow.
I've
Yeah.
never seen one Amiga being used in a business, and that was in Latin Hotel on Neighbours.
So why do you think, and I know it's probably an obvious question, why do you think the Amiga eventually kind of just killed the Atari ST?
Well, apart from the fact that it was better in every department, yeah.
Yeah, apart from that.
Yeah. And the big problem with the Atari ST is it was so processor-centric. Everything it did had to go through the fucking processor. Of course, the Amiga didn't have that. It had all the dedicated hardware, just like the 64 did. So, But this time, unlike the 64, the Amiga wasn't saddled with a slow processor. Not that the 64 suffered from it as a result, but the Amiga had a fucking decent processor to back up all of the dedicated hardware as well.
Was it Motorola 68,000?
68,000, the original one, yeah.
7.4 megahertz or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it was those custom chips that basically kept that going at that speed, and the others, because there was the Gary, wasn't there, the gate chip and so forth, that basically meant that the chipset basically had their own co-processors in them, so it kept the speed of the processor going fast. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, there was probably more Ataris getting used up until fairly recently than Amigas, down to one simple fact: the Atari ST had the MIDI interface built in, and people like Fatboy Slim and other they still use the Atari ST up till fairly recently.
I would have said that was the number one reason the Atari ST had longevity. Is MIDI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a horrible computer by any stretch of the imagination. But when you go from silky smooth scrolling and unbelievable sound on a 64K 8-bit, and then that the same as you, my next computer directly after my 64 was an Atari ST, and it did feel like a bit of a come down. All right, when the songs used samples and that, and I had a thing called the Big Demo that had loads of Rob Hubbard music done on it. That was all right, but when you actually look back at the games, and I've noticed this more watching some of your arcade perfects and that out, is when you actually see them next to each other or back to back, side to side, whatever, you can really tell the differences between the Amiga and the ST. And if it's not a direct port from one to the other, the Amiga's streets apart. But when I first got the ST, sound aside, I was still fairly blown away by the graphics and that.
Mm-hmm. But I think what Lukozer said, I mean, the Atari ST did, it could do more graphical effects, had more colours, it had much better graphics than the C64. The sound chip was obviously inferior, but then along came the Amiga a year later, and it did everything the Atari ST could do and some. So it was always going to be a bit of a no-brainer, I think.
They should have put 8580 in the Amiga as well. Should have had SID chip support and all. Imagine that with the Polar chip together.
I mean, as much as I like Amiga audio, the Paula chip it never grabbed me as much as the SID did. It just, and I think it was largely the way it was programmed, for lack of a better word, constantly using samples for everything, and it's just horrible making music on that thing. It's just, to this day, I much prefer 64 music to Amiga, even though Amigas their audio may be of generally better quality, and things like drum tracks and all that will sound better. But it just never grabbed me. And the annoying thing is, one of the reasons why I went for or wanted an Amiga in the first place was because I thought the audio was going to be even better than the 64.
I think, I'd agree with that, because it samples basically. It's just a quick, cheap way to say, look, this is how good it can sound, but it's lazy because it's just basically sampling and playing something back. You might as well be playing an MP3 player and say, hey, look what I can do. You really want to show off, your talents by actually doing something yourself for each channel, and actually making, altering all those pitch and sound waves and so forth to get an instrument sounding like that. That's what the beauty of the SID was. It was rough, but basically so versatile. That's the whole point, I think.
I think the fact that we saw the involvement of the SID music. I mean, some of the games I was doing an arcade perfect my arse a couple of weeks ago, and the tune on the C64 was just like one voice. It was just like blink plonk, just plinky plonky. And then fast forward 2 years later, you've got Monty in the Run, you've got all the fantastic Commando and Sanction and Dela, and I think you knew. It still astonished me. I mean, I was sitting, and I'm actually going to do. In fact, I've got an idea for a video coming up. I was sitting watching some demos in the C64 last night, and I'm thinking, this is fucking incredible. You know, the graphics, it's got more colours than it should have. It's got amazing sound. You know, it's just incredible. Whereas you say, Dale, that the Amiga came along and it could use synthesized sounds and that kind of stuff, samples, and it just felt like it was far easier. And I don't think, you know, you understood the skill that went into making the 64 sing, whereas with Amiga it was far easier. And I think it's not got the same character. The 64's got character by the bucketful. You'll never see the Amiga's got character, at least I wouldn't.
Well, Chris Gilbeck can make it.
Just going to go and stick the light on back in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Hillsbeck could make, you know, a fucking kazoo sing, you know. I mean.
Well, that's a fair comment, I suppose.
Panther might know this a little bit more, but I think he said that, I think Chris Hillsback turned around and said that the Amiga Turrican 2 sounded so much better than the Atari ST because he designed it on the Atari ST, sampled one whole section of the music and had that as one channel on the Amiga, and then added on top of that all the other instruments and made it sound like it had 16 channels.
Okay, that sounds like...
And all because he... So that's how he cheated, in other words. But that's the reason why the Amiga one sounds a little bit superior.
A little bit. It sounds a lot superior. I have both machines. I've actually got a CD of I recorded years ago from. I think I had a PC TFMX player, which is Chris's sound system, and I recorded the whole soundtrack to Turrican 2 because of just how good it sounded. But he tended to, even though they were using samples, a lot of the things like Chris Schulzbeck, when you look at his setup now still for games, his computer screens and keyboards. So them samples he would have played himself and then put them into whichever mod tracker he was using, obviously TFMX, and he would have done it that way. So he still created those sounds from scratch with a keyboard. But yeah, like you say, they are very sampley. Definitely not as good as a SID, in my opinion, anyway. But then you knew I was going to say that.
We had an inkling. Good, excellent. Sorry, Dale, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I've been looking back at some of my old Commodore 64 games, and I think the biggest change I saw in sound before Rob Hubbard and everything came along is everything seemed to be in 1983, when some of the early games were out, all the volume for every single voice was at 15. And then as you got further along, they started to adjust the volume on the other channels, making them lower volume. So the sound started to become more interesting. But if it's interesting, if you do go back and listen to China Minor, it's all one sort of volume for every instrument. And then if you look later on, they alter the volume on each channel, giving it more depth. But I don't know whether I'm talking out my arse with that, but that's what I think I've seen or heard when I've gone back.
Well, it sounds about right. If you listen to like the last SID show we did, that track by Thomas Detert on there, the 13-minute one. I mean, that's an unbelievable track, and that's got time changes and volume changes all over the shop. So I reckon you're probably right.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anything else to add before we can move on at all, chaps?
I'll just add I haven't got a Scooby about anything that was just said then.
That is just me there.
Well, life's a bitch because basically when I'm watching your Elite and you're saying, oh, right, so now I'm just going to go down here and out here and I'm going to go out there. Now you know how it feels.
Yeah, Elite Dangerous is a doddle to pick up, though, you know. I mean.
I actually realised I've put about 6 or 7 hours into Elite Dangerous myself this week as well.
You've progressed a lot further than I think people would imagine. I mean, if you only put in like 6 or 7 hours this week, a lot of people will think, oh, that's fuck all. But yeah, you've come on leaps and bounds in that one.
Well, I made 20 million just from scanning planets.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got Ranger as my Explorer rank now.
Yeah, you're only 2 ranks away from Elite now in exploration.
And I'll tell you the other thing that picked me off, right? He started to talk really, really interested about something that I've got knowledge of when I'm driving home.
Oh yeah, you
When I'm
mentioned that. Yes, yes.
He starts going, oh yeah, let's start talking Planet of the Apes 2001. I'm going, hang on. Right.
Well, you can blame Panther for that one because yeah, he was the one who first started mentioning sci-fi, I think, wasn't it?
People started rounding off loads of names like, oh, Andromeda Strain, and I'm going, oh, for goodness sake, I want to scream. I can't do nothing. I'm driving along. I'm just listening. And I'll tell you the downside of that, I got in, oh, it's time to go. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I try to keep it to 2 hours. I very rarely actually manage it though. It's usually closer to 2.5. And one of my videos in Elite Dangerous goes on for 3 3/4 hours. And it is all exploration, which makes it as riveting as it sounds.
Taught me everything I know.
How long have you been playing for then, Panther?
I bought it a couple of years ago. I earned enough money to get a slightly better ship, and then I stopped playing for ages. And then when I started talking to Chris Lukozer and the whole situation on the planet happened, I started playing it again. And I've been sort of on and off as I've been in and out of work with like furlough, stopping and starting. When I know I've got a few days off and I can stay up really late and not bore my missus to tears with it, I tend to sort of sit and play for 3 or 4 hours just because I park on Chris's carrier and he goes all around the bloody galaxy and it's like, oh, we're in such and such a place. Excellent. I haven't explored anywhere there.
Yeah,
I go off the carrier and I go around within sort of like 50 light years, all the different planets and map all the Earth type and water type planets. And what you're supposed to do is you map a planet, go 20 light years away to a station, you use their services and you get money for the data. With a carrier, you get a bit less, but I can map a planet in the same system, go to the carrier and do it. So I end up parking back up on the carrier, go into his services like section, the Starport services, and sell a whole page. And I did one the other night. I got 11.5 million credits for it. All I did was fly around and scan about 20 planets. So easy money. I'm trying to save up for a bigger engine and a bigger power plant. I need about 70 million. So.
Well, Lukozer said a moment ago, well, I didn't understand a word. You know, you might as well have just been talking Russian to me. And I'm seeing Alan's eyes sort of glaze over and go, what the bloody hell? So, moving on.
I noticed you oldie gamer Steve, he actually backed Elite Dangerous, but he thinks it's shit.
The vast majority of people who back the Kickstarter don't go near it anymore.
So what? Holy shit! There's a bloody humongous spider. Come on, where the hell are you going? Don't you dare climb up my PC. Anyway, Christ, that's some size. What was I going to say? So I mean, I was a massive Elite fan. Why would I not love, a next generation version of Elite? Is it a kind of different game? I mean, I think the original Elite, well, obviously it was about shooting stuff, and it was also about making money. What's kind of different?
Well, if you're going to put it as basically as that, not a lot. If you imagine a game that has like the control method of the original Elite, the sort of complexity level of Frontier and First Encounters, but with like a major graphics overhaul, so it just looks better and sounds better. There you go. You've got Elite Dangerous. There are other bits in there that have been added over the years, but that's sort of like a very, very basic summing up of it.
Yeah. So how big is the galaxy? I mean, how many planets are there? Is it one of these things that's like tens of thousands?
How many planets, I don't know, but how many systems there are is 4 billion.
4 billion, bloody hell.
Yeah, I was just about to go, hang on a minute, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Christian WN has asked, Panther will soon get a Panther Clipper. Can you get that in Elite Dangerous? No, it's not in that game. Much to the annoyance of a lot of people who play it, because Frontier Developments did actually design a new look version of the Panther Clipper for the game, but it hasn't been added. I think I know why, but it's pure supposition on my part.
Well, suppose then. Suppose, Chris. Suppose. Tell us.
Well, I think it's because so many people in the community will do nothing but complain about it as soon as it gets added. Unless it is absolutely, the greatest in every single fucking department, they'll all be moaning about the fucking thing. So I think Frontier Developments just said, oh, bollocks to it, we're just not going to bother putting it in. And for once, I actually agree with something they've done, if that is the case.
Are they still, well, I know they are, they're still releasing updates for it, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. There's a major one coming out next year. Although you can bet your life there will be an announcement saying that it's been delayed again. It's already been delayed once.
And are these free updates, or have you got to?
This next one that's coming isn't. All the rest have been.
Well, the next one.
This next one, it's another expansion like Horizons was, and then this next one, which is Odyssey, that's a paid-for expansion. I mean, I'll be getting it for nothing because I got that bloody lifetime expansion thing, which I bought while the game was still in beta. But yeah, I suspect it's going to be, 40 quid jobby.
That's a question I've got for Alan. Then is, have you ever been part of a beta, Alan, for anything? I mean, the last beta I haven't been in many, I think, was Guild Wars 2. So I haven't been in many betas much at all.
Can't say I have. No, the only beta game that I bought, and I'm pissed off about it, was Sociable Soccer, which John here was he was the sort of leading it. Basically, it's a sequel to Sensible Soccer, and they brought out a beta. I think there was it was very, very restricted. And it was something like 20 quid. And then they just decided they were going to stop working in the PC version, and then they moved to a mobile version for the Chinese market, I think it was. And they said that once they'd made enough money through the Chinese mobile market, they were going to go back to the PC again. I just thought that was absolute complete bollocks. I've lashed out 20 quid for a beta game, and then just decided, nah, fuck it, we're not going to bother working on it anymore. But I can't say I have. I can't say I've ever been a part of any beta type thing. No, don't think.
And have you, Panther, have you been part of a beta for anything? Console, PC, anything?
No, I tend to buy them when they're a bit more tried and tested. I was going to back Elite Dangerous originally, but I ended up moving the year that come out, or that battle was going on. I moved 250 miles across the country to where I live now, and I kind of forgot all about it. And then I'd stopped worrying about it at all. I thought, well, I've got an Amiga emulator. Well, I've got two A1200s if I really want to get that hands on. And I was going to play Frontier again. And I just happened to be looking at something on Facebook. And I think Steam or someone else to do with Valve, something like that, announced that they were selling it cheap for 2 days only, a special thing to try and get more players in. And I think I got the Elite with the Horizons update for something like 18 quid. And I thought, well, for 18 quid, it's worth a punt. And to be fair, I'm enjoying it. It's kind of relaxed. Unless you get into combat, which I haven't much. I have a couple of times. But unless you really get into combat, it's quite a chilled out, laid back experience. When I was playing the other day, I was online the same time as Lukozer. And we were basically, I had time to type messages. I mean, I could have plugged the microphone in, requested comms, and we could have just talked like this. But I was just sitting there typing away in between, jumping between planets and that. And it's like a nice chill out for me. Fly around space, waste some time.
Any you guys any interest in playing Last Man Standing? What's it called? No Man's Sky. I know Lukozer, you've played that a wee bit. Have you got into it very far?
Yeah, but I have stopped playing it because there was a major bug with it. And it doesn't affect everybody, but it has affected an awful lot of people, and it now affects me, which is there are 5 saved game slots, and when you exit the game and then reload it, some of your saves are all corrupted. Now with mine, it affects 4 of the 5 slots. That may have changed. It may now affect all 5. Erodian, who I don't think he's in tonight yet, he has the game, and it affects all 5 of his. So every time he starts up the game, if he tries loading any of his saved games, no, it don't work. It just sends you right back to the beginning again. So if you can't save your progress, there's no fucking point in playing the thing. So I've got pretty far in it, but because of that bug, I'll stop playing it then.
And has there never been an update since?
This bug's been known for at least 2 years. Not only has there not been any bugs or any patch or whatever for it, as far as I can tell, Hello Games don't even acknowledge it. It's like they're trying to ignore it. So all these people who are affected by it, and there are enough of them, nothing's happening.
If they can't replicate it, they're basically saying we can't do much about it.
Yeah. Just, I was watching a video, Guru Larry does a video, it's different things, quite a good channel, and one of them was, it was bugs that actually screw up your console or your game or whatever, and was it Age of Empire on the Nintendo DS, if it asks you to put your name in, and if you put in a 3-letter name, when it goes to save it, basically it actually fucks the cartridge when you can't use it. So what did they do? Did they recall them all? Did they bring out an update or whatever? No, they put a wee pamphlet in saying, by the way, make sure your name is more than 3 digits. Like, fucking hell.
There's a good question there from Yoldy Gamer Steve Al, if you want to put it up.
Yep. So I'm too preoccupied with this fucking spider. Where the hell is he?
Yeah,
anyway,
so I'm keeping an eye on the chat as well as talking.
I just want you to go. It's behind you if you see him on the ceiling. I don't mind spiders, but not when it's running across my bloody foot. Anyway,
That's
my friend. That's why I've got down there. My spider sense is tingling. I'm walking like that.
He's looking for you, Del. Sorry, what was it? Right, there we go. This, you oldie gamer Steve. There we go.
Well, I can answer that first. No.
That was short and sweet, wasn't it?
Delboy?
I'm umming and ahhing. I probably will bend and buy a PS5, but because I've done that in the past. But right now, at the moment, I'm not excited one bit. Not one bit, really. You, Panther?
Well, I'm in with the PS5. I haven't bought a PlayStation since the PS3, and I bought that in 2007. I've got one of the backwards compatible ones that plays PS2 games, and I need to strip it down and redo all the heat sinks in it because it keeps telling me it's getting too hot. When I did that before, I was a bit less knowledgeable on how to do thermal paste. If I can fix that, then no, because that plays PS1, 2 and 3 games. If the PS5 comes out and it can play backwards compatible completely with physical media rather than downloads, I'd consider it and use it for that and as a new Blu-ray player. But for all the modern stuff, I'm not interested. The more it looks like real life, the less I care. I mean, there was a demo recently of the PS5 showing all these cliff faces and all these stones and all this sand, and it looked technically impressive. But if the people look as real as that, I'm not really interested in that. I've always preferred pixels to polygons, so I don't think it's designed with me in mind. And not only that, I don't really fancy playing FIFA or Call of Duty 24/7.
Well, I noticed Delboy's got FIFA 4 running in the background there. But, yeah.
Actually, I was
a bit shit. Is that the PlayStation 1 version you've got there, Dale? Is it? It's a bit pants looking anyway.
I was actually just looking at the Friday Waffle Future future topics, because I'm pretty sure I put in there about backwards compatibility, but like I haven't got time to look, but I'm pretty sure I raised that as a question. I said, do you think backward compatibility, I can't remember the question. Do you think backward compatibility hinders future progress? And I put that as a topic.
I mean, I'm with I mean, I've got, will I get a PlayStation 5? Probably. I probably shouldn't, because it'll probably sit unused. To be fair, I do use my PlayStation 4 a fair bit. I would love being a kind of, given the fact that most people that are going to buy a PlayStation 5 will sell their PlayStation 4, and that will be their solitary gaming platform. For me, I hang on to everything. I've got the PlayStation 1, I've got the PlayStation 2, I've got the 3, I've got the 4. I've got all these bloody systems. So for me, if it was going to be backwards compatible with all these, I would think perfect. In fact, I wouldn't get rid of my other machines, but if I could play them, fantastic. But I don't think far too many people place an emphasis on it. I mean, the majority of people want technology. They want real life graphics. They want it to look amazing. I'm not interested in that. I'm like Panther. I want my games to look like computer games. So why would Sony and Microsoft and all these other people push the cost up so that it can play PlayStation 2 games? Because I would guarantee that 99.99% of people that buy a PlayStation 5 have got no interest in playing a PlayStation 2 game or a PlayStation 1 game. And it's just going to probably make it a bigger bloody thing. And it would just push the cost of the thing up as well. So I think the average gamer has got no interest in backwards compatibility. So only us old farts, I think, that really want that. Anyway, joysticks. Lukozer, what was your joystick of choice back in the day? In fact, did you not tell me that when you first got your C64, you just had used the keyboard for quite a while?
Well, for a couple of weeks, yeah. Because back there, I didn't know that I could use my Atari joysticks on the thing. So I mean, I was only 10, so so I didn't have any joysticks on it. Then we got our first joystick was the actual official Commodore joystick, which is utter crap. So yeah, it wasn't very good. After that, I think I then got the first of many Quickshot 2s, which of course all fucking broke within a week because they were such shitty build quality. And then I found out, I could use me Atari joysticks on it, and I just stuck with that until I think I'd had me Amiga for a couple of years before I finally used a different, and then I started getting the Kempston joysticks. They were fucking good.
So when you was your C64, was it like a birthday present or something, or?
It wasn't actually. Supposedly, it wasn't just bought for me; it was bought for everyone. I can't remember exactly when we got the thing. Say it was '82, so.
That's early.
Yeah, it's going back a fair bit. But yeah, and of course there was nothing bundled with it. It was just the 64, the power pack. Didn't even get the data set with it as well, so we couldn't load anything.
I was the same. Yeah, you had to buy everything separate. So what did you eventually get a game, or was it a question of just typing in your own basic programs for the first?
Well, yeah. For the first couple of weeks, it was just a case of sitting there and typing in basic and that, And of course, at that time, I was used to a Spectrum, and also from school, BBC Micro. So I kept typing in all these Spectrum or BBC Micro basic commands, because syntax error every fucking line, because it was all pokes and everything if you're programming a 64 or in basic anyway. So that was quite a steep learning curve.
I could just imagine. I mean, am I right in thinking that 99% that come with the 64 games you can't use keys, can you? Or can you?
More than you think, yeah. Also, bear in mind that I know I've mentioned this a couple of times before. If a game used joystick port 1, then yeah, you could use keys anyway, even though it wasn't officially supported. I mean, it wasn't a very good keyboard layout. It was control and 2 were left and right, 1 and that arrow key next to it were up and down, and space was fire. So it wasn't a particularly good layout, but you could use keys anyway. It was a fucking lifesaver for Daily Thompson's decathlon, I can tell you that. I saved many joysticks after I found out that little trick.
Was it not you that told me why the reason why they chose joystick port number 2? There was some reason, wasn't there? Eh?
Well, I think port 2 can only be programmed if you're programming in machine code. I don't think you can program it if you're doing a basic thing. Don't quote me on that, but I think that is.
I wonder, would that be why half of Interceptor software games always use joystick port 1 then, you think?
Well, yeah, a lot of the early games, they were using just port 1 because it was just so easy to program it. It was just, even if you didn't know how to actually program the joystick itself, you would just put... Well, first of all, you just start with port 650, 180, which would then enable the auto repeat of all of the keys, and then you would just program it to use control 2, 1, and the arrow, and bosh, away you go.
What about yourself, Del? What was your joystick of choice? In fact, what was your evolution of video games? Were you an Atari 2600 man or ZX81?
Yeah. Now, I think I mentioned this in the Discord because going back all those years, I had one of those like grandstand or Binatone Pong machines. That I think everybody had.
Was it the orange one?
Yeah, I can't remember the colour of it for the life of me. It was probably white or black. But it was my neighbour down the road that got within the first 3 months of them coming out, an Atari 2600. And it was called actually the video console system or video computer system.
Yeah.
And I didn't get one until 1979. So, that was an eye opener because it was like, oh, can I borrow some of your games? And and he'd let me and all that if I would, but I couldn't afford them. They were damn expensive. I think his father worked for K-Tel Records. Yeah, he was a salesman. That's right. My father just worked in a factory. So, when I got my Commodore 64, like a lot of people, it came with nothing. And I remember I got it the Christmas of the year it came out. I remember that. And my father was taking it out of the box 2 days before Christmas, and the power supply broke. And he knew how disappointed I was going to be. He actually drove to Corby Christmas Eve because it was Corby plant. I think it's where he had to drive to get another power supply, so I wasn't disappointed at Christmas. He never forgot telling me that all the way through for about 15 years. I drove to Corby for you when you were... And I was going, yeah, all right, okay. But I think I told you in the last stream, I typed in games and I kept them on for days because I couldn't afford the data set. It was damn expensive, so I kept things on for days. I dared to switch it off. It was like, I ain't typing all that in again. You got another thing coming. So that was, but joystick wise, let me think. Yes. Because I had a VCS, I probably still had the joysticks. So that would have been something that I'd have used for quite some time. I went through quick shots just like Lukozer. I used to take them apart. It was the levers. They had a lever and it just snapped off. They were absolutely atrocious. And I think I ended up, in the end, I think they're called Competition Pros or Euromax something or others. They were the nice micro switched with 2 buttons, but my favorite one was a single one that was right at the front. Can't remember the name of it though. A few of my friends had this one that you put in your hand. It was like a molded sort of like thing with just a small
Speed King, I think that
Speed
was.
Kings. Yeah, I never actually had one of those, but that clicked like mad. My friend would plug his joystick into my machine, and all you could hear was.
Apparently, that was the joystick of choice for sensible soccer. That little one, the kind of clicky joypaddy type thing. Yeah.
I think it was red and white, if I remember rightly. It was like striped. red and white anyway, or something.
I think I might actually have one in my cupboard, but I'm not going to go looking for it. What about yourself, Panther? What was your stick of choice?
Well, I started off on the keyboard with a Spectrum 48, which was good for decathlon, not so good for the front of the Spectrum. And then when we finally, well, I was lucky. I had the Spectrum Plus, so I had the plastic buttons. My next door neighbour, his front of his Spectrum was like that. When we finally got the joystick interface, quick shot 1s, quick shot 2s, which, as you all know, don't last at all. When I got the 64, I believe my mate gave me a Atari Joystick, the old VCS joystick with it. And then I progressed on to competition pros, the Euromax ones. I had a couple of see-through ones, which I also used on the Amiga. And I've still got an Atari 7800 joystick that I'm the only person that likes them. And the other joystick I've got is another Conix one. It's not the Speed King, it's the Navigator, and it's kind of like a trigger, and it's got a joystick on top. And that's really clicky. Sounds like a football rattle when you're playing, but that's a really good stick as well.
No, nice.
But I like pads now, because I know you've said before, you don't like playing Commodore 64 games with a gamepad. I don't give a toss as long as I can control the thing. I've got no nostalgia. I had so many different types of joysticks over the years. Tell you another one I had. When I had my ST, I had the Quick Shot 10. It was the same colour as a Commodore 64, sort of beige and brown. It was like a big tit. You used to put your hand on and lock your hand.
I know the one, yeah.
Fire button.
Horrible looking
That
thing.
was bloody awful, and I bought that brand new for that 25 quid. But yeah, I don't mind. I've got for my Commodore 64. I've got a PlayStation 2 adapter, so I can use a PlayStation 2, which also means one of the fire buttons is mapped to up. So if you're playing something like the Run or something like that, it's more like using the console because you can jump without having to press up all the time. It would have come in handy when I was playing Sam's Journey, actually, but I didn't think about that because I was playing it on an emulator.
Can I ask a quick question to Lukozer?
Of course you
can. I don't want to go back to Elite or anything, but I think it'd be interesting for me to know what he uses as a controller for his Elite, because I've been thinking about buying one of these Thrustmaster, Horta, or whatever they call them type things. They're damn bloody expensive.
Too expensive.
But what's your control method of choice? Do you just use mouse
and keys? That's all I've used from day one. Yeah.
Okay. It was no more complex than that. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
I use an Xbox 360 controller and keys, but I use mouse. I use a mouse for the star charts and that. It's just easier to navigate around them. But yeah, I use an Xbox controller for flying and keys for dropping weapons, landing gear, and jumping and all that sort of stuff. So there's a plethora of ways to control it.
Mm-hmm. I just remember back in the day when I was. Well, it's not that far back, but I did buy quite an expensive joystick at the time for Descent and Forsaken. It was one of these, it looked like a quick shot, but it had hats. I'd never heard of the term hats before. It had these buttons at the top that are like little mini joy pads at the top, and it had a little, a thrust type thing, on the underneath. And I just went, wow, this is nice. Again, broke. It just turned into another piece of plastic that I never went back to.
Is that why when you try and map an Xbox 360 controller, you got the wee analog, it comes up hat? I never really understood what that was. Yeah. What does it stand for, hat? What is it, a hat? Is it an abbreviation or something?
Oh, I'm going to have to Google it now, aren't I?
Be on with you. Anyway, I'll quickly... I've rabbited on about the joystick that I liked. I mean, because it was
I've got to quickly add, I'm glad no one mentioned the zip stick. I fucking hated those things, and loads of people really raved about them, and I could never see why. I thought they were shit.
Is that the black joystick with the yellow square buttons?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
You mean the one that I've got from Amiga?
Oh, fuck, you haven't, have you?
Is that
that's one of the worst. That's the fucking thing.
You know what? It's got a good feel, but using that thumb just doesn't really work.
Well, the big problem I had with the fucking thing is if you were trying to move left, you always, whether you're moving left or right, you always hit a diagonal. You never wanted to, but you always fucking did. And I just could not stop getting diagonals on it. I got so sick of the fucking things. And it wasn't even mine. It was a mate of mine had it on his computer. I hated playing games around his house because he always had such a shit joystick.
I think that if I'm right in thinking, but they not kind of the. I mean, joysticks, you could get cheapo joysticks. I think like your quick shot or whatever. There were some real shitty ones, but it had the single little round button that were just crap. Then I think like zip sticks were they were quite expensive. And then of course this bad boy that I had, which nobody else ever seemed to have, it was an American company called Wico. They made all the joysticks, and the reason I liked that was the joystick that the guy that used to own the computer shop, that's what he used. And I mean, if you look at the movement, there's a lot of movement there, but I love the fact that it had the fire button on top. It was just really, really comfortable to use. You were talking about the Atari joystick. Considering the Atari joystick, the Atari 2600 joystick was probably one of the first joysticks ever. It still really, really stands up as a joystick.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Unless
Iconic.
you're wanting to, it's not ideal for like shmups where you're having to hammer the button. But it's solid, if it's a platform game, you kind of go, especially once it loosens off a wee bit, and they're completely indestructible as well. So
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember when we got our VCS. I think it was around the time that Space Invaders came out for it, so that would be 1980, I think, wasn't it? And the joysticks in that, they worked fine up until about 93, I think it was. So I got 13 years out of it. So that was all right for me, yeah.
Well, I've still got a couple. What's that?
Hat switches. You asked, I've found, right? It basically, in the dictionary, it says hat switch, noun, plural, hat switches. Video games, a control on some joysticks used to manipulate the point of view. Origin from its shape. So there you go. It's called a hat switch.
Okay, hell. That was worth waiting for.
You asked.
I couldn't remember the name of the Atari joystick. It's the Atari CX40. I knew it was C something or other. And it's an iconic thing, isn't it? I mean, basically, I just found it very stiff at the very beginning. And sometimes the little ridges that are underneath the stem, they snap, sort of, they come away. They're brittle. But they're absolutely fantastic joysticks. I mean, I loved them back in the day.
One of the worst joysticks ever was the BBC joystick. It was literally this thing, and it had a little.
Awful.
It was like a little metal stem with a black thing, and you moved it like that. But the problem was it was analog, and if you moved it there, it didn't self-right. So you had to you try playing fucking Jetpack with this analog thing. It's just the biggest load of shit ever. Awful.
Okay, but you play revs with it, and suddenly it really does come to life. It was
Possibly.
the only control method to use for that game.
That's a good point, actually. I'll need to dig that out and actually try it, because I think I've got a couple of them actually kicking about. Yeah, brilliant. Anyway, right, moving on.
Hang on, before you move on, I was going to ask, of any of you, because I've never used one, I've only seen them. I think they were on some MSX computers, a little joystick that was actually built onto the keyboard.
Oh,
They looked, they were great. But I've never used one. Have you ever used one?
Never used one. I've seen
Not
them.
used
but,
one,
yeah.
no.
Okay, moving on.
I think it was just certain models that had the joystick built in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I only ever had one MSX. I think it was the MSX2. I can't quite remember. Didn't have it for very long.
So anyway, why were all Amiga Thalamus releases relatively pants? That's one for Panther.
By relatively pants, you mean they were all absolute shite.
Here's the thing. I mean, Thalamus. Well, again, when you actually start looking at them, Thalamus. It was an offshoot of Future Publishing. I think it was.
Future Publishing was the parent company. It wasn't so much an offshoot. But...
And obviously Gary Liddon went to work. He went from Zap to work in Thalamus. And you know, you can say whatever you want about them. All our games on the C64 looked amazing. They really, really did.
And
I've
it
got
sounded
one.
amazing as well. And they weren't all rubbish on the
What, the
64.
Amiga?
No, on the
No,
64.
on the C64.
Oh, so no, on the 64 they did some decent games, but on the Amiga,
Yeah.
No. I mean, only a real idiot would buy the Amiga version of Hawkeye.
oh, like, what sort of fucking dickhead would do that, eh?
They would do that. Bloody hell.
That's a real dig at Lukozer, from what I could tell. Because I think he bought, what was it, Hawkeye? Was that
Yeah.
the one?
25 fucking quid for Hawkeye on the Amiga. What the fucking hell was I doing? They really saw me coming that day.
So what's actually, well, Lukozer, I'm going to put it to you because it was your question. What is so bad about the versions? Because they kind of look nice, eh? Is it just is it?
That's just it. I don't think they did look nice. I thought they looked fucking bland. The music was always ultra generic. I mean, you know, when you consider the two that always stand out, we've mentioned Hawkeye and then fucking Armalite. Like both of those games, okay, Armalite, I didn't like the 64 version anyway. Hawkeye I thought was great on the 64. And both of them had fantastic music on the 64 versions, like properly good. I'm amazed actually that neither of those have appeared in any of our SID vids. And then on the Amiga they decided, no, we'll get rid of that. We won't even bother doing an Amiga version of that music. We'll just completely change it and put completely new music in it and make it as utterly bland and generic and totally forgettable as we possibly can. So yeah, audibly they were both shite. Visually they were, you know, totally forgettable, and you know, it just completely ruined it. And in the case of Armalite, they basically said, all right, everything that made the 64 version good, well, in the eyes of everyone bar me, by the sounds of it, yeah, we'll get rid of all that and we'll just turn it into a really bland, generic shoot 'em up with an absolutely ridiculous difficulty level. There you go.
Yeah, what he said.
I think
I'm not going to top that, am I? Let's be honest.
I think
It's
I,
like- Sorry, Dale.
No, I was going to say, all I was saying was is that I think I had a little discussion about Falamus in another gaming stream, and I said I think they're phone-in games, and what they meant by that, and I said, well, you know how somebody would phone in a review, you know, it's like I can't be asked, I'll just dictate it and send it off. That's what Falamus seemed to be for me with the Amiga. It's almost like I know what it is, I'll phone this in. Code, send it off, there you go. And then they got 25 quid for every game they sold with that and ploughed all the money in and did develop, and then just continue putting all the quality on the C64 where you'd get less money back. And we can get away with murder on the Amiga, we can get 25 quid every time we sell this, don't care, you know. And it sort of ended up being that all the way through their life spell. So they were like phone-in games.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Del. I mean, the when you look at the 64, you had like especially from a music point of view, which is something I'm into. You had like Rob Hubbard on Sanxion and Delta. Mike Walker's music on Armalite's pretty good. I can't remember the Qdex music. You had Joe and Tell on Hawkeye, which is a fantastic soundtrack. You have Matt Gray's absolutely blistering piece of music on the loading screen for
Hunter's Moon, yeah.
So much so I put that out as one of my videos. I actually asked Falamus if they minded if I put a full video version up of their intro, and I was like, no, do it, tweet us in it, and they retweeted it for me. So I'll give them. But it's a new Falamus now. But they seem to be going back and touching up their Commodore 64 games and not their Amiga games. So there's an answer to the question straight away.
Am I right in thinking that most of the ports in the Amiga, did they come out after the C64 version, or did they kind of come out simultaneously?
I think eventually they came out simultaneously, but to begin with there was a bit of a gap.
And were these the sort of like the Amiga ports that were Pish, basically?
All of their Amiga ports
Aye.
were, fucking shite. So yeah, even the ones that Salivus themselves didn't publish, because of course on the Amiga, Quedex was released as Mindroll, mind you. In North America, the 64 version was called Mindroll as well. But yeah, even then, the Amiga version was just
I suppose
Did they
that's
ever do
all.
an Amiga version of Heat Seeker? Because that was a classic.
oh.
Oh, my friend
I,
absolutely loves that game.
I think that was one that they were going to do an Amiga version of, but it never appeared, which is a real shame. But they were also going to do an Amiga version of Retrograde. Now, I really do like Retrograde for the 64, which is weird because you look at it and it has everything that you would think, right, that's a game that I'm going to hate. And yeah, I fucking love that game. I think it's one of the best shoot-em-ups on the 64. And they were going to do an Amiga version of it, but it never appeared. But with their track record, I think that's a good thing.
That's always the case. So you get a classic game that comes out on one particular platform. It can be a brilliant game, and then they bring it out. You know, they get a different development team to kind of program it. I mean, best example I can think of is Whizball. Whizball on the C64 is just a absolutely astonishing bit of programming. And yet the 16-bit versions, no offence to Peter Johnson if he's watching, are shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Amiga version was a straight ST port,
Aye, it was.
which didn't help, and the ST version was shit to begin with. So,
Got a good question there from Milfy Swimbuckle, if you want to pull it in.
Yep, I did see that one. Yep.
Because I know what mine is straight away. Crazy Cars on the Atari ST. What a pile of dog shit. I bought that. I went into Logic Computers in Southgate in North London, and they used to let you load the games up there. I got the Titus logo up. I got the music, the guitar samples. Didn't look at the game. Thought, oh, listen to that guitar. I'll have that. Ejected the disc and bought it for 20 quid. What a waste of money. What an absolute shit game that really was.
I had the Amiga version, and the Amiga version was a straight ST port. So yeah, it was every bit as shite as the ST one.
And the best it was, Crazy Cars 2 was equally as absolute shit. It was no better in any shape or form. It was awful.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of the gameplay that had been changed from the first one, but it was still every bit as shit as the first one was.
Have you played?
The thing that got me with it was when you went over a bump in this bloody great Mercedes, it used to make a beep sound. It used to fly up.
Yeah, and fly up in the air, yeah.
Right, yeah. Awful. Dale, have you played any of the Crazy Car games?
Yeah. I had some fun with them, but the one that Panther said, less said. I think about that. I did not have a good experience with that game whatsoever. But I'd have to think really hard about the worst game I ever bought. But I think Rise of the Machine probably just comes to mind. I actually was one of the stupid people that bought that game and went, "What the hell have I bought?" And I think I loaded it twice. And the second time was just to check that it was that bad. And it was. So then, I think it turned into a. I think it turned into a. I think it turned into a blank. I think pretty much. I was
also laughing at Yoldy Gamer Steve that just put worst game by Elite Dangerous, 200 quid. Touche, Stephen. Touche. Carry on. Sorry.
No, but I was just too embarrassed to take it back to the shop. But it's one of those things where Alan said before, is that have you ever taken a game back just because you thought it was shit? Well, no, we didn't, did we? And we've already had that conversation. But yeah, Rise of the, I would have been embarrassed to take it back because I'd have said I'd have been owning up that I bought it. And it was.
I think for me, and I've mentioned this quite a few times, one of the worst games that I ever bought would have to be Street Fighter on the Commodore Amiga. It's $24.99. I'd never get back again. As I've mentioned before, me and my mate, we would both chip in for one game once a month, and then he would get to keep it. Then the next month I would get to keep the game, and this particular month it was his choice So we thought, oh, that looks fucking brilliant. Check out the graphics. That looks amazing. We'd got in the bus into Edinburgh, into Virgin Megastore, picked it up, came home. I said, you go and stick the kettle on, I'll just load up Street Fighter. By the time he came through, I'd already completed the game, and it was fucking Pish. And I think that ended up becoming a blank as well.
I've just remembered, actually, that the other embarrassing thing was I bought the deluxe edition that came with a mouse mat of Rise of the Robots. I don't know. It's like, special edition, extra $5. Yeah, give it me. Beckon me on. I need you. Oh, shit.
Finally, Mr. L, your worst game that you can apart from Hawkeye, obviously.
I don't, even including Hawkeye, it's still an Amiga, another arcade conversion. Yeah, I paid £25 for Rolling Thunder. Yeah. And I bought it from the same shop that I bought Hawkeye from, so they really did fucking see me coming.
Yeah,
So-
Lukozer's in. What shit we got today?
You know.
What Pish can we sell to him? So how did you play it much, or did you literally think this is awful? I'm fucking not playing it again, or did you play it because you had spent £25 on it?
Well, I think initially I played it because I'd spent £25 on it. I think I played it about 4 or 5 times, and then I formatted it. So the blank disc was more entertaining than the original game was. So.
I had more fun formatting it than I did playing it.
Yeah.
And I think the worst game I ever bought in the C64 was the very first game I bought, which was Crazy Kong by Interceptor, and we all know about that one.
Yes, we do.
It's that bad. It's good. It's actually entertaining to play. Yeah, talking to worst games, and Andrew Braybook, if he doesn't already hate us, he's going to hate us even more. And again, this is a Lukozer question. What would you say is worse, Fire or Ice or Rainbow Islands?
Fire and Ice. Yeah, for me, well, I mean, I did the review of it relatively recently. Yeah, I think Fire and Ice is actually worse, or is a worse game than Rainbow Islands. But I hate Rainbow Islands more because, of course, that was the one that really spawned all of the fucking cutesy bollocks that infested the Amiga for about 2 years. But Fire and Ice is the worst game, I think.
Did that not feature? I'm sure that featured in one of our worst videos. Worst game videos. And I think I was kind of disagreeing, and you thought it was absolutely Pish. I'm sure that wasn't it?
I don't remember it appearing in any of them, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
What is it about the game that you hate so much, Fire and Ice?
Everything.
Aye, from the plinky plonky intro.
That fucking intro.
You mentioned Bobby Crush, I'm going to
Right, the moment he starts that fucking animation where he's playing the piano and then he turns round to the screen and does the... if he was a real person, I would never tire of punching that little cunt right in the face for days.
I'll tell you what, this stream has been worth it just for that sprint to the camera.
I mean, whose idea was it to put that in? You know, I mean... Yeah,
That's why I watch Chrissy's game review. If any of you in the chat don't watch Lukozer's channel, just find a game that's full of cute characters, see if he's reviewed it, and then prepare to laugh your ass off.
Yeah, you want to hear swearing? My God, you'll learn words. Take it like that, you know. I mean,
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, okay, let's forgetting if you re-released a special edition with Bobby Crush removed, would you play it, or is it the actual?
No, I
game
wouldn't wipe my arse with it. You know, it's fucking shite. I wouldn't go near it.
You're not a fan, are you?
The sad thing
Well,
is,
I didn't want it to come across as though I was on the fence or anything, you know. I had to be sure that, you know, my message was, you know, received.
the annoying thing is, I'm quite a fan. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the game. I don't think it's pish, but I'm sure you got further in your bloody review of it than I've ever got. So I
And
think
you like it?
I think it's all right. Aye.
You know.
What about you, chaps? Are you haters of these games?
I can
Go on.
appreciate them for what they are, but you know, I've said before, you know, Rainbow Islands is a very, very well made, very well made conversion of the arcade game. Just happens to be an arcade game that I think's rubbish. I mean, other
Yeah.
people want to enjoy it. That's you know, that's totally up to them. But it's just one I've never got on with at all. And as for Fire and Ice, well, I didn't buy that on the Amiga, but I had it on the Amiga, and I think I got that, Jim Power, and Risky Woods at the same time. And out of them three, I completed Risky Woods and played that one all the way through because that one was all right.
That's not a bad game, to be fair. Come on, Amiga. Yeah, I think the biggest problem with the Amiga at that point, but I mean, we're talking about 1993, 94. It was just every other game was a cutesy game. You had your Sonic the Hedgehog stuff. You had your Silly Putty. You had your Titus the Fox. Even was it Soccer Kid, which I absolutely hated.
Oh, I remember that
passion.
fucking shite. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the big fucking eyes, the big bulbous head on the top of the tiny body, plus the fact that it's a football related game just doesn't sell it to me. Every game had to be. I think what they were really looking for, they were looking for their Sonic the Hedgehog, which, because I mean, obviously the Mega Drive was massive, and they just thought that that's the kind of game that everybody wants to play. Everybody wants a super. They basically consoleized every single game.
And then you got Zool.
Aye. It's, you know, yeah, that's basically what happened. Was every fucking game was just kind of cutesy. I mean, there are so many, but I don't mind Fire and Ice. But yeah, we've spoken about it at great length. Why we all well, Dale, are you a fan of Rainbow Islands at all?
Now,
You had to say that.
well, because I haven't been vocal about it, but I'm agreeing with Panther really, because Rainbow Islands has an excuse and Fire and Ice doesn't, is how I look at it really, because it's a coder's dream. You know, I mean, it's actually a spot on conversion, and you can turn around and say whatever you want about the game, but you can't turn around and say, now that's how you do an arcade conversion. Fire and Ice doesn't have that excuse. It's like, what is this? That's how I looked at it, and I went, it's mascot heavy. That's during that era that you're talking about now. Everything was cutesy. It was like, what is going to be our mascot?
Yeah,
and it just turned into this. We need to be able to also possibly, if this takes off, port it onto a cartridge that these Mega Drives and the SNESes can do, because that's, you know, at that particular time, you know, there was inroads for Ocean into those cartridge type games, so they had to come up with an AA game that looked absolutely fantastic and cutesy, because then it will attract just about everybody. But they threw away absolutely everything else, and it turned into what it is. I mean, it's one of those things that looks nice. I mean, but it's almost cluttered to me. They've lost the plot, because they've just put so many things that are going on in the background. It's almost like they looked at international karate and said, hey, look, there's a worm floating on in the background and all of this sort of stuff. And they just went, right, we're going to have snowballs. We're going to have snow falling here. We're going to have a little creature going along a wall, all this sort of stuff. And you're going, yeah, where's the game? I'm jumping around. What is this? And that's how I looked at Fire and Ice.
I think you need to remember, probably the biggest selling arcade games at that point was Bubble Bobble, and is it Parasol Stars and Rainbow Islands, and it was just an overload. You had, what's the other one? Chris's favourite,
New Zealand Story.
Oh, New Zealand Story. That's the one. Yeah. I mean,
but I will put my hand up and say I liked Puzzle Bobble.
Just
Bust a move, you see, because I got it on the Neo Geo. Yeah, I got it as a cartridge on the Neo Geo, and I went, "Oh, I like this," and it was because it was given to me.
You had a
There you
Neo
go.
Geo? Bloody hell!
Mhm.
Really?
Yep.
Back in the day?
Yep. The first
Wow.
game I had was that Alpha Mission. We talked about it, I think, in the
Oh.
stream, because I went, that was my first cartridge, and I went, "Wow, what a game! Love this!" And that joystick was just monumentous. It's like, "Oh, this is great. Love this." But they
Have you
were just like 150, 200 quid a game. It was like, what? So I had one per year or something stupid.
You'd be upset if you bought a duff game for that, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. You find level 5. Yeah, you find level 5 crashes and you go, shit, it took me 2 years to get to that point.
have you still got it, Dale? No.
No, I haven't got that.
No.
Shame, though, because it was like, I never even had a CD version or anything of that. I mean, I've seen no end of videos, people turning around and saying, yeah, long loading times, it's not the same thing. And I'd probably agree with that. It's the original, that's the one you want. It's a 24-bit system, but it's not. All of this, I could ream off loads of stuff, but I won't. But I did enjoy my Neo Geo experience back in the day, yes.
I can now say I actually know somebody that had a Neo Geo.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, can I ask, go for Panther first, favourite era of video games, 8 or 16-bit?
Oh, that's a question, isn't it?
Tough. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
And why?
Majority, I'd say 8-bit because of my experience with the Commodore 64 and the music, and how smooth the scrolling was. The aspirations of arcade ports, even though they were, looking back, they were crap. That's all we had, not being like Chris and living in a town by the sea that had arcades and that. That was probably better. You know, I've definitely got the most nostalgia for the 8-bit era. I've got some good memories of the 16-bit era as well, but it's a Commodore 64 I've got set up in the front room, and the A1200s are in the garage. That says a lot.
I think for me is well, you're talking about the nostalgia. You know, you need to remember back then we went from having no video games to suddenly you had this thing called the Commodore 64 or whatever, and you could play these video games on your TV, and it was just amazing. So the buzz you got was just phenomenal, and since I've never experienced as big a high as I had when I first got my Commodore 64. Get the jump from C64 to 16-bit was good, and then it went for that to PC, and now when I got my PlayStation 4 about 3-4 years ago, I bought it, and I actually fucking left it. I didn't even a week to open the thing. That's how excited I was to get it. You know what I mean? Whereas back then it was like, fucking hell. So yeah, I think for me, I would say it's my favourite. The most nostalgia I have is definitely the 8-bit for 100%. What about you lads down the bottom?
Do you want me to go, Lukozer, or you?
Oh, go on.
8-bit, 1984, I would have said around about. And I think it's probably for all the reasons that you guys have mentioned, really. It was the variety, it was the excitement of moving forward into something else. I think it was also the time of innovation that coders came into say, what can I do now? Where the 16-bit was more, we're going to expand on this area, graphics. We're not going to innovate much in regards to control methods, doing something new. I remember the Amiga being an incredibly slow burn for games. My God, I was going into a computer shop, no word, and I was going to say, what's coming out this week? And the Amiga chart would have one game at the bottom per month, and the 64 would be like reams like this. And I'd be going, God. And then you bought it and going, what? You know, because apart from a couple of exceptions like Marble Madness or something like that, There was, and to be quite honest, they were games that had been done on the 8-bit, but just made 16-bit. I mean, I can't remember the game. It was really, 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 really bad on the 8-bits. I think it was called Amazon Warrior or something like that. You had this Egyptian bloke going around, and all he did was throw a sword and go like that. Right?
Fighting Warrior,
right?
that was.
Right, Fighting Warrior, right? Then there was an Amiga version. It was like something like Sword of Fergal or something. It was the biggest sprite you'd ever seen. It was like
Sword of Sodan.
Yeah, right. And what were you doing? You were going along, and all you did was go whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I was going, well, this is the same bloody game. And the only thing that you could say about it was one of them cost me $29.99 and the other one cost me $7.99. Both were, what's that word? Pish. Yes. Right. And all I was going is they're trying to do something with the blitter, right? Moving big objects around. But where's the innovation? Where's that thing that Jeff Minter was doing with sheeps that go, left and right and and all the eating grass and all of this sort of stuff. The creative part. Where's the creative part? So yeah, 8-bit all the time. Probably around 1984. That's where I'd go.
Can't argue with that. Mr. L, you going to buck the trend and say 16-bit?
No, I fucking ain't. No. 8-bit all the way. I mean, my top 3 games of all time are all 8-bit games. Impossible Mission, Yars' Revenge, and Berserk. There were a few times, again, it might have been because of the age I was, but I would see 64 games running, and I'd be watching it thinking I didn't know a computer could do that. Not just I didn't know a Commodore 64 could do it, I didn't know that any computer could do that. And there was like 2 or 3 occasions when that happened, like the first time I saw Impossible Mission, I've mentioned that several times. The first time I ever heard loading music. The first time I heard music as good as Ocean Loader 1 on the Transformers. I bought the game just because I heard the loading music. I didn't even hang about to see what the game was like. So, yeah, 8-bit all the way. I mean, there were some, decent games on the Amiga, but they were very few and far between. I mean, okay, you did get some absolute gems, like Dungeon Master and what have you, but for every decent Amiga game, there was probably about 100 that were, you wouldn't go anywhere fucking near.
I think it certainly took the 16-bit market quite a few years to kind of find its feet, and as Del was kind of saying there earlier on, there was really no innovation. The early games on the Amiga were your perfect crazy cars. They just thought, we'll put a game out there with nice graphics, fuck the fucking playability, bollocks to the sound, whatever. The thing is, because it was a new thing, it was like the early days of 8-bit. It didn't matter how shit a game was. You just buy it because you wanted as many games as you could. It was the same as 16-bit games. You were buying all this crap just because it's a new game for the Amiga, and you automatically thought that it was going to be better than your C64. But it did take quite a few years, I think, before innovation started coming. You started getting things like Populous and that kind of stuff, and the Amiga started to kind of find its feet. But yeah.
What was your first game, Lukozer, on the Amiga? Because mine was Mindwalker.
Well, I mean, we got our Amiga in '87, and it came with 3 games, 2 Mastertonic games, Feud, which I thought was okay on the 64, except that it was bugged to fuckery, so it was pointless trying to play it. The Amiga version looked nice, but it played at an absolute crawl. Then there was Space Ranger, which was okay, but I mean, I've reviewed it anyway. You take a look at it, you'll see it's utterly disposable. So those were 2 Mastertronic ones, and then I also got Marble Madness, which was fantastic, and it was a game that I was really keen on. So yeah, those are the 3 that I got with it. Then I can't remember if it was on the day we got our Amiga or if it was like a couple of days later. I went and bought my first Amiga game, which was Terrapods.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Terrible, you mean?
Eh?
Could you actually
I'm so-
figure out how to play that? It's quite a simple game, isn't it?
Yeah, I completed it. Actually, I'll tell you, I got right to the very end where you have to destroy, I forget how many it was, all the pteropods all come down in one like big invasion. You have to use missiles and destroy the lot of them. And I think I managed to destroy all but one. And I was so pissed off that I never played the game again.
If there's someone that knows his way around an Amiga, just appeared in the chat. That's Mr. Graham Cowie. Just,
Oh, yes.
I did a video recently of a really good Amiga arcade port. You'll be glad to know that I put your new version of Vigor in there. That's probably the best arcade conversion on an Amiga. So well done, Graham.
I'll need to check that out. Is Graham working on another game at the moment? I believe.
At least one.
At least one.
Yeah.
No, I'll need to check that out. Just kind of following on from what we're talking about, what would you say was the best company or produced the sort of the most number of good games on both 8 and 16-bit? They can be two different companies. I mean, Ocean obviously probably put out more 8-bit games than... In fact, they probably put out more... Yeah, I would say they probably put out the biggest majority of 8-bit games when you consider how long they were going for.
I don't know, I can think of one that I think produced a lot more games than Ocean, and that would probably be my choice as the company that produced the best, or the most good games for 8-bit systems. Okay, they did produce an awful lot of crap stuff as well, but Mastertonic, surely.
Mastertonic.
I mean, okay, like I said, a lot of, they did release a lot of crap games, but they released plenty of games that were pretty fucking good, especially for £2. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't really argue. I mean, I bought a hell of a lot of Ocean games, as you already know. I've gone through that Christ knows how many times, and I bought them purely for the music. A lot of the time, the games were completely secondary, which was a good job, really, because they were nearly always shite. So... But yeah, I think for 8-bit certainly, I would say Mastertronic was the one that released the most good ones.
No, that's interesting. Interesting. I think for me, I would probably have to go. They didn't release a lot of games. I would probably have to go. Well, it'd be between two. The Imagine label under Ocean. They produced your ER Kung Fu's, your Hyper Sports, your Green Berets. I thought they didn't put out a lot of games, but there was virtually no duffers in there. They were all fantastic conversions. And I think Epix, they put out some fantastic games. It's a difficult one.
Well, Epix certainly started well, but I don't know if I'd say they maintained it.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the most technically accomplished one for me would be Summer Games 2, and then I think you had Summer Games, which was amazing. Winter Games, I thought was a bit of a step back.
Oh, I love Winter Games. I thought that was the best of the lot.
Really?
Yeah. And
then you had Summer Games 2, and then you had World Games was nice, but fucking log rolling. What's that all about? Jumping off a cliff. It was a bit too kind of left field from my liking.
Well, it's still a million times better than California Games was.
Oh, that was and then that was when it. Then they did not bring out like games summer edition or something.
Yes, the games summer edition and the games winter edition, and the less said about those two, the better.
Aye. So they started off pretty good, and then they kind of seemed to ebb away. What about yourself, Del? What 8-bit kind of wise? What would you say is your favourite?
That's a difficult one, I have to say. I was thinking more along the lines of what company in the 8 and 16-bit, and I'm going, that's bloody difficult. Because, I mean, Electronic Arts, you could probably think of, like you say, Epix. But, of course, with Epix, they didn't do much at all very well, I think, on the 16-bit. It was all mostly 8. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you look at summer games on the Amiga, you'd be going, what's so different. There's nothing really there.
Absolutely perfect example of what we're talking about earlier. You know, I was talking about Whizball, and then it came out in the 16-bit, and it was shit. I mean, all the summer games. I remember when I got my Atari ST. I mean, Summer Games was one of my favourite games in the ST on the 64, and I couldn't wait to get this new shiny version on the ST, and it was so disappointing. It just wasn't a patch. And the same with the Amiga one. The Amiga one, I think it was a straight port.
And then if you're just thinking straight 8-bit, there's so many good companies, and there's so many, you know, that came out with at least a couple of titles that you would actually turn around and say that's gold. You know, I mean, you every company that probably brought something out, you could turn around and say that. Why didn't they do that all the time? It would be the thing that you'd be saying. You see what I mean? I mean, so that's a difficult one. I'd find it really difficult. But I had a lot of fun with Activision. Parker Brothers on the Ataris. You know what I mean? You've got to not forget that age old background, because I played River Raid and Hero and all of those sort of things to death. And even though I had a VIC 20 and moved on, and I played Arcadia and all of the rest of the stuff, and then moved on to the 64 and played, you know, the likes of Drop Zone and, you know, like Alan loves. There is still crap amongst those companies. So it's what was consistently good. I'd probably go with Lukozer, Mastertonic, because they, even though they were hit and miss and you could throw shit against the wall, some of it stuck. that's the luck, I suppose.
I'm genuinely interested. Could you guys give me some examples of good Mastertonic games? I know a couple that I can think of. But I'm genuine. I've not been in that as a piss take. What games would you say were good by Mastertonic?
Well, Kickstart 2, straight off the bat, you know, you can't fault those.
Was that not kind of, that was Mr. Chip software, and then it was released by Mastertonic? Well, I suppose, that's... it was,
well, that's what I thought you were referring to, like published games rather than the developers. If you're talking about developers as well, then, yeah, I think you can then scrub Mastertonic off the list, because the stuff that they actually created themselves as well as published was all the games creators stuff. Well, I mean, like Action Biker, that was a great game. Well, I thought it was great anyway. Oh, fucking hell, I've gone through which one?
The Night series.
The Magic Knight one, yes. Yeah.
Wasn't Mastertronic do Kickstart 2 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, you've got to turn around and say that's gold.
Well, I would say that was probably the best game Mastertronic released.
Yeah.
What about Master of Magic? That's kind of up there.
Yeah, if you include, well, actually, yeah, obviously including the Mad label stuff, because the Magic Knight trilogy there. Hero the Golden Talisman, another Sean Southern game.
There's a bit of pattern forming here. There's one programmer.
Yeah.
Proof of Destruction. Yep. The old gamer Steve said Proof of Destruction Pod. That's another Sean Southern game.
Yeah, but the last V8 was Codemasters, so that's not.
The last V8 was released on the Mad label, but it was programmed by one of the Codemasters founders.
Mr. Darling, I think. Oh,
Darling,
yeah. Pipeline Mastertronic. Oh, I think if you're talking about Super Pipeline, I think it was eventually released.
Yeah, if you're talking about because
it was Task Set originally.
Yeah, they re-released an awful lot of stuff on the Mastertronic label.
Even Ghetto Blaster, I think, was actually released on the Mastertronic, if I remember rightly, and Poster Paster and.
The funny thing is, I mean, Super Pipeline 2 is one of my favourite 8-bit games, one of my favourite video games, and yeah, apart from the Super Pipeline, the other stuff they brought out was pretty naff. Jammin', to be fair, is quite an interesting wee game. I don't know if any of you chaps have played Jammin' at all. You've got to collect instruments, and it kind of builds up a tune. Like, it looks shit, it sounds shit, but it's actually quite good fun. But the rest of the stuff, Poster Pastor or Poster Paster, and was there not one
Lazy Jones?
What's that?
Lazy Jones.
Was that not Terminal Software?
I don't know. I thought Lazy Jones was Task Set. I'm not sure.
No, I think you're thinking.
Warrior as well.
Cad-Cam Warrior. Cad-Cam Warrior was quite a good game, actually.
It's an early one I remember from when I think it was on the C90. My mate gave me when I bought it.
Aye. What was that? I think. Are you not thinking, Delboy? You're not thinking, is it Bozo's Day Out? It's called.
I'm just going to check it up.
That
later,
was absolute crap, that. Fucking Bozo's Day Out. Jesus Christ. That's another one that I reviewed, and yeah, it got the treatment it deserved.
Yeah, it was terminal software, but it was the thing I was thinking about. I think it's a platformy.
That's the one with David Whittaker soundtrack, isn't it?
Yeah.
Famously now.
Yeah, the one that was punched by some fucking trance band or whatever, eh?
I don't know what the music genre was, I just know it was shit.
I don't think they wore skirts.
Craig Flanagan's asking, does anybody remember Atlantis Software? I remember the name.
Yeah, I can't remember any of the releases, but I definitely remember Atlantis Software, yeah.
I'm trying not to cheat, so I don't want to look now. And I'm trying to go, what the hell's Atlantis Software? Yeah.
I can't remember. Craig, can you come up with any games that they released? I can't recall. I think they were mostly crap.
But while he's coming up with games, I can tell you what I think was the best label between the two, since I posed the question earlier, mate. And for me, they spanned both, would be Gremlin Graphics.
Gremlin Graphics, yeah.
Because they did,
Yes.
on the 8-bit, there's a lot of Ben Daglish music, which obviously you know I'm a fan of. I did like the Bounder games. I know they're not popular with like Chris or yourself, but I like the Bounder games. Then, of course, once they moved on to the 16-bit, we got Supercars, Lotus Turbo Challenge,
And Zool.
And Zool, yeah. There's only one Zool I want to look at, and that's Sigourney Weaver.
So, kind of moving on for that then. So, we've kind of touched on the 8-bit. What about 16-bit companies? I mean, I think there was less, but there was probably less companies that made 16-bit software. But I mean, you got things like Psygnosis.
Psygnosis were all fucking style over substance. For every good Psygnosis game, there was like, fucking 20 that were just absolute toilet, wasn't there? So, no, I don't have a high regard for Psygnosis at all.
I think the best example of that would have to be Shadow of the Beast. I mean...
that was the one that really started it, yeah.
Yeah, even from the big, was it Reflection, you had like the computer chip kind of 3D... The big stunning music.
I mean, started on that.
What's that?
Don't get me started on that. I got that with my Amiga, my A500, and I realise now that this is the showerest shit I got with that. It's a good job I had a mate round the corner who had already filled up 50 blank discs for me. My Amiga, I unpacked it. I think it was actually Highlander who pointed out in one of the, I think it was the waffle I did with you. We did a couple of weeks ago. I got the Screen Gems pack, it turned out, and I had the brilliant Shadow of the Beast 2, the even more brilliant Back to the Future 2, the even more brilliant Nightbreed, and of course that top game of the whole lot, Days of fucking Thunder. What a great figure that was. So if it weren't for my mate who used to live around the corner that had links to BBSs, used to charge 50p a disc to cover his phone bill, my Amiga collection would have been sorry and very sad.
I got drawn in with Psygnosis. That's the problem, because there was literally nothing around for the Amiga, and they were a very early company. So, you when something came out and it was like Barbarian, and then they had it on the shelf and it was a great big box. I remember that. It was like brown, had a really nice picture. And you're going, oh, all right. And then you look on the back and you're going, oh, is that what the character looks like? Oh, okay, let's go and get that. And you go along and it's like a slowest, ploddiest piece of crap that you can get.
Let's make
big icons at the bottom and all sorts of
let's make a hack and slash arcade Rastan type game, and we'll make it mouse controlled.
Yeah, that's it.
It was like keyboard and mouse controlled, and it was like a 10-second delay. I mean, I've played that a few times. I think that was the first ever Amiga game I ever bought. And it looked the dog's bollocks. If they'd only made it a joystick controlled game, it would have been so much better.
That's what I call Amstrad syndrome. You have a look at the back of an Amstrad game. I mean, I've got an Amstrad, so I'm well aware of what his capabilities are. But 9 times out of 10, you'll look on the back and you'll think, look at the graphics on that Amstrad. Then someone would load it and you see it attempt to move, and it's like, no, don't think so.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think was the best? I mean, it's a very, very subjective thing. What do you think was what were the good 16-bit companies? I mean, I'm thinking the Bitmap brothers. I mean, they put out some. What games did they have?
Speedball 2. There you go. I think that's about it as far as Bitmap Brother games I like.
Well, I would always turn around and say that the Amiga was put on the mark was lifted to another level when Defender of the Crown came out by Cinemaware.
Yeah.
But it's not a great game. But what I'm trying to say is that everybody went, whoa.
Yeah.
Now that's what I want to see, and it's such an early title that basically you just go, that sold Amigas. You know what I mean? There was Marble Madness looked lovely and it played great and so forth. But if you picked up a picture of Defender of the Crown and showed you that English map and all that sort of stuff, with the color cycling to make it look like water and all that sort of stuff, and all those trumpet players, everybody remembers the trumpet player pictures, and you've got to turn around and go, that put it on the market. But is Cinemaware a good company? They were samey. They didn't really do too much. There was a couple of sports games that they tried to go into, but really they're not the best company. So it's hard. I find this one really difficult now.
Defender of the Crown is one of those weird games where the ST version was vastly superior to the Amiga version.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Was
much
that the one
better.
to play? Aye.
And they did bring out a 64 version of it as well. And the good thing is, when they brought out the 64 version, they based it on the ST version and not the Amiga one. So I would say, actually, of those three, although the Amiga version visually looks great, it's the worst one to play.
Why is it? What's wrong with it?
Well, you look at things like... say, for example, when you're going into, you're raiding the castle either to rescue the princess or whoever who's been taken. With the Amiga version, all you do in that bit is just keep hammering the left mouse button. Now, with the ST and 64 version, you've got like the health bar of yourself and the health bar of the guards there. You can defend and parry like their attacks, and then you attack yourself. So it's the playability is improved. Again, also with when you're trying to break through the castle walls using the catapult, that is much better done on the ST and the 64 than it is on the Amiga one. You've got options, not only you breaking through the wall, but you can also you send in like pots of boiling oil or pots
Poison.
of disease or whatever, and so you can like really decimate the army that's sheltering within the castle. And in the Amiga version you had none of that. So the presentation on the Amiga was great, but in every other way the ST and the 64 one was so much better.
Cinemaware was a birth of fire, to be quite honest. They had to come out with 3 games in 6 months or something, or they were going to go bankrupt. And if I remember rightly, the 3 games were Defender of the Crown, SDI, and Sinbad and the Throne of the Falcon. And that's from memory. And the SDI went pear-shaped. They had to get another company in to actually code that, or another couple of teams. But it was a Richard Joseph thing. That's basically it. He was a one-man army, and he had to step in and do so much. I think I saw a documentary that basically said he was working 18, 19-hour days straight because he had this, if you don't get these 3 games in, we are not going to back you anymore. Your money has been withdrawn. You're gone. So the Amiga one was obviously a development title. I thought it was developed on the Amiga, and then it was ported, and the ST went more advanced and came out. But I might be wrong with that. I thought it was mostly developed on the Amiga, but the Amiga one's worse because the ST had much more ideas thrown in, and that's because it came out. Its development cycle was pushed forward by the right person, basically. But,
so look. Yeah, so it was the Amiga version of Defender of the Crown, the first one then, was it?
Well,
Oh, no idea.
you would think that because there is less going on in the Amiga version than any of the other versions, that what they didn't port across the ST to the Amiga, so it would have been developed on the Amiga, and they incorporated all the other ideas into the ST version. That's how I thought it worked. But that's because there were three coding cycles going on at the same time, and they had to get them out to market. SDI was an abortion. Don't even think about looking at that game. Oh my god.
Guess what I'll be reviewing next week, yeah.
Oh, well, I still want to see you play Fairy Tale Adventure, Alan, and I still want to see Lukozer play some of the shit that you told him to play, because basically I've been going, I can't wait for this. Haven't seen sight nor sound of it yet.
I think I've still got about 8 of the videos that I recorded, and we'll need to knock our heads together and get that one put to bed. So what other, I mean, the Bitmap brothers, I mean, what did they have? Yeah, I was never a fan of Speedball, don't know why, never really clicked with me.
Speedball 2, first one I
Speedball.
didn't rate, but Speedball 2 was great. And actually, I forgot Xenon 2. I think it got mentioned in the comments there as well. That was good. But I think they are the only two Bitmap Brothers games I like.
Not a fan of, what's that one? Chaos Engine.
No, I was just going to say, not Chaos. No, I'm not.
Really?
No. I mean, well, it doesn't help that I don't like all that steampunk stuff. I think that's all shit. I can't stand it. And then, bottom line is, it's another Gauntlet clone, effectively. And by the time that came, I was so sick of Gauntlet clones that, no, it just never grabbed me.
And the first Xenon game was an arcade machine with Amiga boards in it, wasn't it? I mean, that was...
yeah, there were a few like that, weren't there? Yeah.
There was this rollerball type thing that looked absolutely fantastic in pictures, and then when you got it, you went, what the hell's that? Why did you make this go so bad?
I think it was a Mastertonic company that put out
Mastertonic released the arcade one.
It was based on Amiga.
Arcadia, I think, was the
Arcadia.
Yeah.
I think there was a Ninja game as well or something like that. What about yourself, Panther? What 16-bit things? What would you say?
Well, I'd still stick with Gremlin for the driving games and that. Micro Pros are pretty good. Their Formula 1 Grand Prix and some of their flight sims were pretty good.
What about Bullfrog? Any fans of Bullfrog?
Syndicate was good.
Yeah.
Syndicate was good. I'll need to replay that, actually.
Didn't they do Populous as well?
Bullfrog to me was the PC. I'd moved into the PC then, and I was playing Magic Carpet. I was playing Dungeon Keeper. I was, a Populous. I mean,
black and white.
and believe it or not, I don't know if I've still got it. Yeah, that's the Rumble mouse that comes with black and white, which actually vibrated when your hands went over things.
Nothing. What about? I can't believe that nobody's mentioned Sensible Software. I mean, Sensei Soccer's one of my favourite video games ever.
Well, nobody's mentioned Rainbow Arts, and there's so many. That's the problem. And Rainbow Arts were class.
Yeah, Factor 5 as well. Done the games and Catechist. Manfred Trends and his mates.
Interplay, who did the two Dungeon Master games.
Westwood Studios.
What about Ocean? What were Ocean's output? I mean,
no, I thought Ocean when it came to 16-bit. Yeah,
it was all film
family.
Games. I was never a fan of films. Yeah.
See, when they're doing like film tie-ins and they're starting to bring out shit like the Addams Family and fucking Cool World, for fuck's sake. That was when you think, right, you really are scraping the barrel now. Just fucking drop it and do something original. So they did, and they brought out F-29 Retaliator and Epic because they were good.
Epic was a good tech demo.
That's all it was. Yeah, it was a tech demo.
And then I think they managed to put out, was it RoboCop 3? That was kind of epic with the same graphics.
Yes, yeah.
RoboCop 3 always makes me laugh. I know I've told you the story before, but that come out with one of those dongles that you put in the back of the Amiga for copy protection. It's like, this is unbreakable. I had a copy of that game copied onto blank discs 3 hours after it was released.
7 hours, wasn't it? It was cracked in 7 hours, if I remember rightly. That dongle.
Yeah, it's mad. I know. it was 3 hours after the shops opened in the UK because I went round my mate's house on that Saturday at 12 o'clock. I was all right, Steve. What you got? He goes, I've got the new RoboCop game. Oh, I just downloaded it off the BBS. We were sat there in his bedroom. And I went, yeah, I'll have a copy of that. That's pretty good. I mean, it weren't a very good game, but it was quite quick moving for a 3D one at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly faster moving than fucking Stun Runner was.
What about Domark? Are they one of the worst, do you think?
They did do one decent game, and I can hardly believe I'm going to say, yeah, Domark actually released a good game. The Amiga version of Super Space Invaders was really good.
Yeah, it was.
But that is the only one.
It's not exactly a big ask anyway, that game, is it? It's not exactly pushing anything.
I think if anything, they managed to make it even better than the coin-op original. So it just goes to show, if they actually bothered, Domark could bring out something half decent. It's just they never fucking bothered.
Great, see, I thought
the Jedi was just as shit as the arcade one.
That's Rain Wildland syndrome. Basing a game on a shit arcade game, it's always going to be crap, isn't it?
I couldn't believe about the Amiga version of Return of the Jedi. To me, looked like a Commodore 64 game, and the Commodore 64 version to me looked like an Amstrad game. I mean, it was just, they were all just absolute fucking bollocks ups from start to finish.
Hey, did you mention Microprose, Panther?
I did, yeah.
I mean,
Formula One Grand Prix they did.
Who was it? You, Lukozer, that said, was it Formula One Grand Prix 2? Was it the Amiga that was?
No, that was a PC release. PC. I think that was the best version. I think, but yeah, that was PC only.
Need to try that, and of course the mighty stunt car racer as well. That's a game that's just crying out for a remake, if ever. I think.
Yeah, actually, that just reminded me of another one. How about Rainbird?
Oh, Rainbird, what the porn and all them sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, if you're into your adventures, yes, they were a great choice. But I mean, like the original Star Glider, I thought was pretty good, and of course, Carrier Command. I mean, that was a great game.
Yeah.
Okay, then along came Star Glider 2, and it just all yeah.
Did your Carrier Command come with an audio tape?
My one came on a blank disc that I acquired.
This is the Carrier Command theme, and I don't think I've ever played it.
Okay.
Have you got the ability to play that, Dale?
Yeah, I got a tape deck.
You got a tape deck. Stunt Thumb is asking, can anybody remember Special Forces? Don't remember that one.
Don't remember that at all.
No, nor do I. I remember June 2 was a bloody good top-down strategy game.
Yeah, that was a quality game. Virgin Games were good too, says Ray C. I can't remember. What games did Virgin Games bring out?
Well, I thought it was them that did June 2, was it?
Was it?
I know they ended up as Virgin Mastertonic at some point.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they also brought out the Motorhead game, which, okay, not the most serious game you're ever going to play, but I thought that was great. Let's face it, if you can play the part of Lemmy beating up rap fans with your bass guitar, the game can't fail, you know. It's already won.
Did Virgin Games not bring out Monty Python, or was that somebody else? I can't remember.
Oh, I can't remember.
I'm not sure on that one.
Can't remember.
That was a strange game. I mean, I know it was based on a strange TV show, but there was a bit of something in there for everyone if you were a fan of the show. I know that much.
I can't even remember who did the Roger Rabbit game. I mean,
that was Ocean, was it not? Oh no, that was the other one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, like Cool World, it was a piece of
shit. Absolutely shit. Anyway, listen, guys, I'm going to have to call it a night. That's 2 hours and 7 minutes. Oh, hang on, we've got one last question in here. He's just got in before we call it a day. Question: buying games for the Amiga was like walking through a field of dog shit. How much of a factor do you think this was in the Amiga's demise?
Well, it wasn't so much.
Not much of one. Yeah. It was
the C64 GS and the CD32, really, wasn't it? spelled the end for them, and the ridiculous prices of A4000s.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the Amiga. What can anybody remember? What was the last commercial game for the Amiga? I remember.
Well, aren't they still bringing out commercial games for the Amigas? And so technically it never ended.
Yeah, I suppose technically you would. But I remember buying my brother-in-law had an Amiga like years after I had sold mine. It was some tennis game by something Byte. I can't remember. That was like 1996 or something. But I don't know what the.
Now that's an interesting one because I can't think of what the last commercial game was. That'd be hard for me to mention on that.
I know it was on the 64, but I don't know about the Amiga.
Oh, was it that platform Monster something around?
Yeah, Mayhem in Monsterland.
Yeah, Monsterland. Yeah.
Aye. Well, there's Graham saying there Sony killed the Amiga and everything else.
I thought it was
I have to say I agree with what Craig Flanagan has just put up there. I think it was the piracy that killed the Amiga, because piracy was so rife because it was so easy to do, and I think in the end the software companies just got fed up with it.
Quite possibly, I know, but anyway, listen, guys, thanks very much to the three. I was going to say the four of you, the three of you, for joining me tonight. It's been good. Thanks to everybody that's taking part. I don't know how many, 27 people.
Just going to show Alan this. This is what that arrived today from China.
Oh, nice.
It looks actually not too bad. I don't know if you can see it very
well.
Very
nice, eh?
Screen.
What is that running? What game is that running, Dale? Had a wee video.
That's Ridge Racer.
Is that on the PC?
Ridge Racer 2.
Oh, on the PlayStation is that, or is that in the PSP?
No, it's called the A90. It's a Pandora Mini. It's a Pandora handheld. If you've ever heard of Pandora, you'll know what that is. But it's called the Pow Kiddie A19.
Go and send me a link.
It was on sale, £61.
Go and send me a link to that if you don't mind,
Yeah, not a problem. You get 3,000 games, 61 quid.
All licensed, obviously.
Oh yeah. No piracy involved.
The only thing I'm disappointed about tonight is that we didn't see that spider crawl up onto Alan's head.
Yeah.
No, you know what? He's sitting down there. He's actually sitting on top of my Vectrex plug. And he's not moving, so that's my job tonight. Of course, as soon as I move, he'll fucking run behind the filing cabinet anyway.
So wait till you fall asleep, then rub his cock across your face.
Like you were wanting to do earlier on, I says, fuck off. Right, anyway. Right, and that bombshell, chaps. Listen, thank you very, very much to the three guys that have joined me tonight. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in tonight. Until next time, take care. See you soon.
Bye.